Hey, amazing friends. I'm absolutely honoured to be with Wendy Dawson, the Chief Brand Officer of Victory Offices and also top business networker and business leader. How are you today, Wendy?
I'm very well, thank you, Ed.
Now, I got to say, Wendy, it's such an honour coming down to visit you in Melbourne today, and thank you for giving up your time for this interview. I know you're a busy lady.
My pleasure. What would you like to know about?
Hey, listen, I just love to hear from you. Tell us what you do with Victory, and love to hear about what you do in the business networking scene in Melbourne.
Yeah. So I guess with one of the aspects of my role with Victory is that I guess I'm in a position to really go out into the community and see what we can do to help businesses to grow, and a lot of that is that connectivity, the networking. So we support organizations such as yours with Meetup to bring businesses together so that they can have those business connections and learn from one another. And that's probably been one of the big things during the pandemic is, regardless of what's going on, businesses will survive if we actually stay connected. Thankfully, we're now back to face, although sensibly, but back to face. But even during the pandemic, we did a lot of things online, and even online with you, Ed, and your group.
And just for the sake of the audience, this is not a Zoom. I'm actually physically in front of you filming you, aren't I? So I'm actually not virtual. I'm actually here in flesh.
Very true.
Now, I want to ask you, Wendy, what were some of the biggest lessons you learned about business from the pandemic? What really stood out for you, Wendy?
Yeah, so probably after connectivity, or maybe even neck and neck with that being number one, would be just perseverance. You just got to keep on keeping on. Some days are going to be tough. And certainly, in Victoria, when we had, extensive lockdowns, it was tough. But if you keep at it, that resilience, and leverage your network. At times you can seem that you're all alone or whatever, but there are people out there that can help. You can leverage on, and even just a word of encouragement at times is really the thing that can make all the difference. So that human to human aspect.
Absolutely. Now, you are a master networker, Wendy. You run a lot of events and organisations across town, including helping us run ours across Australia, and thank you. How has the networking scene in Melbourne changed or evolved? What are some of your insights, and what do you see behind the scenes in towns? You know a lot of stuff that you can't say on camera, of course.
Yeah, so it's it's interesting. So I'm also the president of the Melbourne Business Network, and our group has certainly been impacted and felt the impact of the pandemic. And if I think about the desire for them to continue to connect, it's there. We also did a lot of online events. But now as we come out of things, the desire and interest to get back face to face is there, and also the language in terms of what our members talk about isn't about business recovery, because if you've lasted this long through the pandemic, you're probably there at the stage where you've probably gone through the worst of it, and now it's about what do you need to leverage from your network to get your business accelerating.
Well said. And I've got to say, I love exactly where you're going, Wendy. Now, I was going to ask you as well, right? What are some of your, now I'm asking you crystal ball stuff. What are your predictions as to what's going to happen in the Melbourne business community during the year of 2022? What are some of your predictions or some trends that you're seeing now that you think will keep playing out?
I think that, business confidence is there, and what I'm seeing is a lot of resilience, and people wanting to get back to business and to do business. And so I expect us to kind of shake off the past 2 years. I think that the sensible precautions and all those things people will continue to embrace. But fundamentally, I think people just want to get back to work and figure out how to trade through all of this. And what does that look like? And where can we leverage those business connections? Because quite frankly, it's everybody's in business to do business, but that means the genuine connections of how one business can help another, and that's not necessarily through the sale of goods and services. It could just be through the leveraging and sharing of information. We've got a lot to learn from one another, and I think by having a robust community around you, that's the fastest way to accelerate your business growth.
Oh, beautiful, Wendy. And I know you can't say too much because it's all rather tight-lipped on this one, but what have you got cooking at Victory offices? Is there any cats you can let out of the bag on this interview? You probably can't, but I'm going to ask anyway.
There's nothing I can let out of the bag. But what I can say is that the commitment to getting back to business, the enthusiasm for people to come back to the flexible workspace is phenomenal. And and I think that across the country, everybody is just keen to get back to work. And if I think about Melbourne in particularly, the largest city that's had the biggest impact due to the last 2 years, that desire is overwhelming. So I think that's probably the biggest thing that I'm seeing, and we're just very keen of all the different, around the different ways that we can actually facilitate and be part of that business growth and that reemergence of our Melbourne economy.
Wendi, absolutely brilliant. And I just want to say thank you so much for your time. Just before I let you go back to your amazingly hectic job of helping people, what are your closing thoughts that you want to leave with our friends across Melbourne, Australia, and the world?
I would say reach out, have meaningful connections. And what do I mean by that? Be interested, not interesting. When you reach out to connect with somebody, seek to understand as opposed to having that immediate, would you like to buy? Nobody's on LinkedIn to buy stuff. Nobody's on Facebook to buy stuff. So I think about having genuine connections. What can you do to actually learn about another business and put yourself in a position where you actually can assist? And if you can't assist, then what can you do to encourage? Don't go to that immediate sell, because that's the fastest thing to turn people off a brand.